Nerd Reactor, roll out.
Hey, what's up, everybody? John Wynn here from Nerd Reactor, and I recently did an interview with Pat Casey and Josh Miller, and you may know them as the screenwriters for Sonic the Hedgehog, the live-action films. And this week I was able to chat with them about Violent Night and a little bit about Sonic the Hedgehog, and just talking about just the creative process and working together as screenwriters. And with this interview, I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, check out the interview with Pat Casey and Josh Miller. How's it going?
Good.
Hey.
Pat, I love your hair. You already have the Viking look that's very fitting for this movie for a certain character. I think we talk about spoilers and it's already out for a while. And,
yeah.
Like just talking about Santa Claus and his roots. But yeah, let's just go from there and see where we go from afterwards. So what was the inspiration for that part of just Santa just being like kind of like this kick-ass, it's like Nordic inspired?
Yeah, I mean, we're both from Minnesota. I'm Scandinavian, Pat is not, but if you grow up in Minnesota, you kind of just are anyway. I mean, our football team's the Minnesota Vikings for a reason.
Yeah, there's all these tales in Minnesota about how the Vikings came to Minnesota long before Columbus, whether or not that's really true. I don't know how much historical evidence there is, but everybody in the state really embraces it. So we've just always thought Vikings were super cool. And Santa kind of looks like a Viking. It just seemed natural. Like people are like, where did you get the idea? And I feel like we never even had the idea. It was just already in our minds.
Already there. Yeah.
It was already in the DNA. Yeah. And like it's really out there. It's rated R. It's very violent, and it's a Christmas movie. But your history, you've done just like rated R comedies, right? So it's not like something new to you.
I mean, we had, because it's like we got hired to do the Sonic movies off of Golan the Insatiable, which was like wildly inappropriate for kids. So then we had to convince them that we could do family-friendly stuff. And then once we did Sonic, everyone was like, what's your next family movie going to be? And we were like, we don't want to only make family movies. Yeah. Now we had to convince people we could do an R-rated movie again.
Good problems to have, I guess.
But yeah, just going from that, let's say from a family movie to an adult family comedy movie. It's got families in it. Is it hard to try to like switch it on and off, or with like the limits and the boundaries of what you can or can't do?
Not really, because I mean, it's funny. My mom still hasn't seen Violent Night because she has a huge problem watching like any level of violence in movies or TVs, and my siblings and like, their wives are like, but mom, I think you'll like it because the rest of the movie is kind of like sweet and funny. And I feel like that's how we've usually described it to our friends of like, I have like a 10-year-old kid. I want to take them to an R-rated movie. Can they do this? And we're like, absolutely. Cause you're not taking them to like Showgirls or something. The rest of the movie, we feel. I had one of my friends who described
there's
the
some
movie
salty language for little kids for sure, but yeah, the violence is kind of all in good fun, and it's sort of cartoon violence. It's like Itchy and Scratchy, or Evil Dead 2 was a big influence upon us, obviously.
But even Evil Dead 2, I mean, I'm like, your kids will probably like it, but that movie is like real like gritty and weird and disturbing in ways. Whereas one of my friends, I thought, accurately described Violent Night as it has a PG heart with R-rated violence, which I think is actually pretty apt. So I feel like, if you think, unless you're the kind of parent who's just like, my children will never see an R-rated movie until they're 34.
Don't try to watch it anyway, because I've done that where my parents would be like, don't watch this. I'm watching Species. But let's see.
I mean, that's the era we grew up in. We were like 10 or something when Die Hard came out. I still feel like we all saw it and loved it.
Oh yeah. And yeah, this does have the DNA of just Die Hard, but also other Christmas films. And when crafting this, was it you were set on trying to get all those different the films into this, like the inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, the Christmas side of it was funny because not to get into it because it's a long story, but like we had to write the movie very quickly for a variety of reasons. So we didn't have a ton of time to go back and like rewatch too many things. So we didn't rewatch any Christmas movies, as crazy as that sounds, which ended up being the right way to do it. Because in a way, we were homaging all the Christmas tropes we remembered from, dozens of movies and TV specials and Christmas episodes of TV shows to kind of,
but like nothing very specifically. Yeah, just kind of the overall effect that had washed over our brains from the time we were kids to now.
Except Home Alone, obviously.
Well, at Home Alone, that was sort of just like once we realized that the story was going to be about Santa's friendship with a little kid, and had the idea like, and then she runs away and hides, and it's like, oh, she's hiding in the house. This is a great opportunity to do a Home Alone bit.
Oh yeah. The message, like it's like a PG movie at heart, but with the violence and writing all the, I guess, like the Home Alone stuff, like the traps and the violence. How is that like, just writing it and trying to make sure like, all right, this is, hopefully they'll capture this once it's live action?
I mean, the Home Alone trap scene, it's funny because that scene never altered as far as being a scene in the movie, but the individual traps possibly changed more than any other like set piece in the movie. Because like we wrote a version, they made us like trim it way down, then we expanded it and trimmed it down, then Tommy came up with a version, and it's hard for me to even remember who came up with what trap at this point.
Other than, everybody loved the sequence, and Tommy was especially excited about it. I felt like that was like half the reason he signed on. He was like, I want to do this Home Alone bit.
And what was that like with the process, like with writing this and then having like a director getting signed on? Because sometimes like each movie is kind of different on how that works. So what was it like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, as writers, that if the director, like Sonic movies are different because Jeff Fowler and us were essentially hired at the same time on Sonic 1. He was a little before us and had to approve us. But that was one where we were kind of like scheming everything together, and then we got sent off to write the script. This one was different because we wrote a script and then Tommy came on like a full year later. But I just feel similar in our influences and the style we want to do that. I mean, he agrees. And, it almost felt like the same kind of thing where we all came up with the movie together because we were just so in sync.
But yeah, we had written that first draft, and then Tommy read the first draft and sat around for a while. Then it got to Tommy and he loved it. And so we worked closely with him on the rewrite, and then we stayed on the picture the whole way through, like while shooting. If they needed adjustments, they would call us, and we would turn around the pages in one day for Tommy. But we were extremely on the same wavelength with Tommy. I mean, he noted that he feels like he wrote this movie himself, or this, but like it also feels to us almost like we directed it. It's like the same, same influences, the same brain. We both love the same level of cartoony violence, sort of like interspersed with sort of the schmaltzy heart stuff, and it was great.
Yeah, and I feel like both of you, Pat and Josh, you're in sync together, right? So what is that like, the process? You're laughing because I'm pretty sure there's like stories of probably not being in sync. But what was that like working together? Do you guys meet in person? You guys try to like hash things out, or is it all like online now?
Well, normally that question's pretty boring to answer, but this was the first movie where, because normally we would get together. I think people envision that we like have one computer that we share, which I guess we did like 20 years ago, when the idea of emailing things back and forth, kind of would take a while. But we get together to like kind of break the story and come up with the outlines and stuff. And then we used to do it where we'd kind of both be in the same area writing, but then we had to write this. This was April 2020. So like lockdown had just started.
Oh yeah.
that was an adjustment for us, is that
Yeah, we wrote the whole movie without ever meeting in person once. But when we had to talk through problems, we would both hop on the phone and just walk around our own neighborhoods. And, but basically, I mean, I guess, we just talk about the movie, try and make each other laugh. And then as soon as one of us feels confident, I'm like, you know what, I think I know how this part should go. I'm just going to go write it, and then we edit each other. I mean, we've been working together for a long time and have a shared philosophy of what movies should be like. So, I mean, I completely trust Josh to edit my stuff and he trusts me to edit his stuff. And we end up with a script usually where basically we can't remember who wrote, which of us wrote any individual part because it's all the same,
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Yeah,
certainly defy anyone else to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, you're both at the point where you're comfortable in editing each other's stuff. When was that? When did that happen compared to like the first time you started working together, where you're like, I don't know about this or that, or it's like, yeah, this is great.
I don't know if it was. I mean, funny. I think back because we use a program called Writer Duet, which all exists in the cloud, and that way we can both be working in the same files, no matter where we are. Well, I alluded to that era where like it was, winding up with all these different files on your hard drive and emailing back and forth. I feel like the only time we'd ever get into problems was I had a bad habit of like rewriting a scene, and then there was just never a version, that original version of the scene didn't exist anywhere anymore. And I'd just be like, oh shit. But that was because I was like, I don't want to wind up with like hundreds of these little files on my computer that I don't know what they mean. Now we just copy stuff and it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 versions of something. So technology helped that issue.
But yeah, I mean, we've been in sync for a long time. Not that we never disagree on anything, but it's fairly rare even, it's like if Josh writes something and I'm like, this isn't good enough, then Josh will be like, oh yeah, you're right. I mean, in the same way, other way, it's like we hold each other to high standards. But that's because we want these movies to turn out good.
I'd say it's actually pretty rare if one of us is like, yeah, I don't know if this is, I feel like we can do better. And the other one was like, I feel like that was the best thing I ever wrote. Usually the other one's like, yeah, not that great.
Yeah, let's amp it up.
You didn't need to tell me.
Yeah.
So this you've been working on the script since 2020. The movie came out 2022. So usually like a normal time for like movies to come out from conception to when it releases in theaters. So what is that like? Just working throughout, because you mentioned like you were there to make sure like if they had any changes. So was that ever like a challenge for this production?
No, like this one felt kind of charmed. I mean, I don't know if we've ever worked on like a truly disastrous production, but usually it feels like things are more going out of control, or like the Sonic movies are so big that there, isn't really a reason for us to be involved throughout the whole time, because they'll shoot the movie and then there's like an entire year of basically just, in post doing effects and stuff. Whereas, we shot Violent Night in early 2022, and then it was out in theaters by the end of the year. It was just kind of an inherently different process we've been used to recently.
But yeah, everything went pretty smoothly for us too, as far as like our schedule, working out of the scripts and stuff. We were able to focus on Violent Night during the shoot, which was nice. We didn't have another deadline crawling down our necks for that exact moment, at least. Which is often the case where we have two different studios demanding a script from us at the same time. We're trying to get them done without alienating half the town.
Okay, last question then. When writing this, did you have anyone in mind with David Harbour, or just any other actor?
I mean, he was the one we were writing for it in our mind. Obviously, we kind of, because we didn't know when we were first talking about it where it would even wind up if we were lucky enough to sell it. So there was kind of like, oh, if this goes to like a company that does like B action movies, maybe it'll be Russell Crowe. He kind of looks like Santa now. You see, I can't remember what movie he was working on at that point. It was an Australian movie, and he had a huge white beard.
That would keep popping up of him on Instagram or whatever. We were like, oh my God, he is Santa. But I mean, David was actually always our first choice.
Yeah.
And we just weren't sure, A, if he was a big enough star to qualify when we were first conceptualizing this, because that was before Black Widow. Stranger Things was big, but wasn't as big. But also we didn't know if he'd be available. Like, he's incredibly busy.
Yeah, or would even want to do it. When they said they were going out to him, we were all like,
he was available, that the studio liked him, that he liked it. And we got the guy who we wrote it for, like for the first time in our whole careers, I think.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Well, all right, Josh and Pat, I just want to say thanks a lot for doing the interview, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.